Good morning, the future. Welcome to e-didactics 101. Today's topic is intertwined with testing students. Roughly speaking, we're going to speak about those moments we all have gone through, namely the days when teachers tested us. But today we are going to look at this concept not as students but as teachers. By the end of this short presentation, hopefully you will have a clear idea about the aforementioned concept, and get the answers you are looking for. To put it in simple words, testing learners is often described as a step-by-step process whose objective is to measure their ability performance, that's to say what they can do with what you have taught them so far. We should also bear in mind that learners are tested for various reasons, and that's why we currently have multiple types of tests, some of which are going to be covered in the coming slides. The first type is known as placement test. As you can tell from its name, this test aims at placing the test takers at an appropriate level in a program or a course. In language centers, for example, sometimes new students are given a placement test to see if they are going to study with beginners or advanced students. This is really helpful. A student who hardly says a word in English may not be able to cope with the lessons taught to a group full of advanced English speakers. So, the objective of placement test is to find out the level of the student so that you as a teacher makes the right decision regarding the group of students he or she is going to study with. Diagnostic test is usually meant to show the teacher the weaknesses and strengths of a student. Typically such a test would take place during the very first encounter with a learner. The teacher would do such a test to see the language gaps that exist in the student's linguistic competence in order to work on them in the future classes. Formative test, I've already spoken about in the previous video. If you want more details, make sure you go back to the previous video to get further details. For the time being, formative test tells the teacher how well the students are doing, and it also shows the extent to which the chosen techniques and methods have been effective. Summative test, on the other hand, is about giving grades like A or F or 10 out of 20. Summative test happens at the end of a course of instruction. Some examples of summative test are the National Baccalaureate exam in countries like Morocco or the regional exam taken by students at the first year of baccalaureate. Such exams are meant to make decisions regarding whether the student will pass or fail. Unlike formative tests, summative ones revolve around measuring learners' performance in order to give a specific grade. This means that formative tests differ from summative tests in terms of the purpose for which each one of them is carried out. Grades are part and parcel of the summative ones. However, none of them is more important than the other. They are both essential to the process of teaching, especially formative tests that guide the work of teachers and shows them what they ought to do in order to address students' weaknesses in a suitable and appropriate manner. So, in case you are a novice teacher, make sure you give enough attention to formative tests, as many teachers are more obsessed with the summative tests, thereby making a huge mistake that may lead to failure of the learner to benefit from the things presented inside the classroom. Aptitude is a concept coined by scholars to describe people's natural ability to learn a language, not including intelligence, motivation, interest, etc. Language aptitude is thought to be a combination of various abilities. Sometimes we meet learners who have never studied English before and still they are able to pronounce words accurately. That's called oral mimicry ability. It is what enables some of us to imitate any sound at ease without any problem or obstacle. This ability materializes itself thanks to their oral mimicry ability. It is part of aptitude which is given to some people and not everyone. This is something that you would notice among the group of learners you will teach, especially if you focus on their pronunciation. You will definitely notice that some of them struggle more than others when reading a text or speaking. Aptitude is not only about imitating language sounds, but there are other kinds of aptitude such as the phonemic coding ability, which is the ability to identify sound patterns in a new language. While this might seem quite similar to the aforementioned ability, it is in fact different. The only difference between them lies in the fact that phonemic ability is connected with identify sound patterns, while oral mimicry ability is connected with imitating sounds. For example, words like hi and hour, they both start with H, but one of them is pronounced like A and the other is pronounced like ha. Some learners would take more time to internalize such changes in sound patterns, while others would not find it challenging at all, and that's what phonemic coding ability is about. If you can identify sound patterns easily, congratulations, your aptitude is phonemic. The third type of aptitude is grammatical sensitivity, which is the ability to recognize the different grammatical functions of words and sentences. As its name implies, grammatical sensitivity is about grammar. When you read a sentence, you would be able to say whether the first word is a subject or verb or adverb, of course with little knowledge about the grammatical rules governing the structure of sentences made up with language items taken from the target language you learn. Achievement test is typically given at the end of a course, whereas when administered periodically throughout a course of instruction to measure language learning up to that point. It is a test designed to measure how much of a language learners have learned with specific reference to a particular course, textbook, or program of instruction. What sets achievement tests apart from the other types we have talked about so far is the fact that they are periodical. In other words, they are administered from time to time, let's say once every 3 weeks or month. The purpose of those achievement tests lies in their name. They show the instructor how much students were able to learn from day one until the day when he or she tests them. We should also bear in mind that students' achievement is a byproduct of a specific course, textbook, or program of instruction. This is very important as the next type of tests would confuse us if we do not take this characteristic into consideration. Students spend some time learning from their textbooks or the lessons presented inside the classroom, and their answers at the day of the test are a result of your instruction and of course the effort they do when they go back home. So that was all for the definition of achievement test. If you have any questions concerning it, make sure you leave a comment and I will explain it in more details to you. Alright, so far we covered I believe 4 or 5 types. The next type is proficiency test, that can be defined as a test that measures how much of a language someone has learned. The difference between a proficiency test and achievement test is that the latter is usually designed to measure how much a student has learned from a particular course or syllabus. A proficiency test is not linked to a particular course of instruction, but measures the learner's general level of language mastery. So now let's explain more the things mentioned on this slide. Proficiency test, that can be defined as a test that measures how much of a language someone has learned. The difference between a proficiency test and achievement test is that the latter is usually designed to measure how much a student has learned from a particular course or syllabus. A proficiency test is not linked to a particular course of instruction, but measures the learner's general level of language mastery. So now let's explain more the things mentioned on this slide. Similar to achievement test, proficiency test is concerned with how much of a language your student has learned, but when it comes to achievement tests, the learning outcomes are a result of instruction, textbook, and syllabus. Proficiency test, on the contrary, has nothing to do with learning from a program or teacher. It is a kind of learning that results from, of course, personal effort carried out outside schools or language centers. For example, nowadays many language learners learn from movies or native speakers making and sharing videos on social media. With time, such exposure to language often ends up with the listeners to pick up a few words and sentences, thereby making their linguistic competence to grow. So that's all for today. Next time, we are going to speak about test selection and design. As teachers, we are supposed to pay attention to 5 main criteria that will guide us as we design a test, such as washback effect, authenticity, practicality, and so on. A test that is randomly designed would eventually end up harming the process of teaching and learning. If your test is impractical, you are likely to waste a lot of time, and sometimes fail to finish correction. This is only one criterion that plays a crucial role in test design or selection. If you would like to know more about those criteria, make sure you check the next video on my YouTube channel.